I believe it is fair to say that very, very few Americans have yet heard of the Earth Charter. That will change very, very soon. Both we and our adversaries will see to that. If the advocates of world government have their way, the Earth Charter will be incorporated into the curriculum and the activities of all our elementary schools, our high schools, our colleges, our universities, and into the decision-making processes of businesses and governments at the local, state, and national levels. The stealth campaign to accomplish this is already well underway. The Earth Charter is not a binding treaty like the Kyoto Protocol or the Convention on Biological Diversity, but that is its strength, not its weakness. The Earth Charter has been insidiously crafted to prepare the peoples of the world psychologically, intellectually, and spiritually to accept all of the binding UN treaties aimed at empowering the United Nations with legislative, judicial, executive, military, and police powers, and to transform it into an all-powerful world government. This is the Earth Charter. This is the copy as produced by the Earth Charter Initiative, the primary organization that is pushing its adoption. It is a mere 2,400 words. It is a declaration of interdependence. They call it that, a declaration of interdependence. It is completely at odds with our Declaration of Independence. Former Soviet dictator Mikhail Gorbachev and Maurice Strong, the Secretary General of the 1992 Earth Summit, say that this charter is intended, this charter, to be the new Decalogue, the new Ten Commandments. God, the creator and sustainer of the earth, of nature, of the universe, and of all things, this same God, we are to believe, is somehow ignorant and deficient when it comes to modern environmental science. But, thankfully, Mr. Gorbachev, Mr. Strong, and other UN-designated eminent persons have graciously stepped into the divine gap with a superior Ten Commandments. Actually, it's 16 commandments. They call them principles, and augmented by an additional 61 sub-principles. So leave it to the socialists to complicate the most simple. They can't even play God without unleashing the deviltry in the details. And when it comes to the Earth Charter, the devil is truly, literally, in the details. The Earth Charter declares, and I quote, "We stand at a critical moment in history, a time when humanity must choose its future," end quote. It asserts that, quote, "fundamental changes are needed in our values, institutions, and ways of living. We must undergo," it says, quote, "a change of mind and heart. And we must embark on what it calls the ongoing collaborative search for truth and wisdom." Now, why is the Earth Charter dangerous? Many of your friends and neighbors, maybe even your pastor, may read it and say, "I don't see anything terribly wrong with this. It calls for protecting the environment, for promoting democracy, guaranteeing human rights, strengthening families. It talks about values, tolerance, diversity, peace, equity, equality, sustainability. Sure, maybe it's a little fuzzy, but I don't see any reason to get worked up over it." That is precisely why it is so dangerous. The words and phraseology have been meticulously chosen as a very important exercise in linguistic deconstructionism. Deconstructionism is the revolutionary method of perverting language to subvert culture and destroy the means by which we understand and communicate facts, ideas, and truth. The average person reading the Charter text will take one meaning from the words, usually the most benign meaning, completely unaware that those who crafted the text have a far different meaning in mind for the same words. The penultimate paragraph of the Earth Charter is a clarion call to empower the United Nations. It says this: in order to build a sustainable global community, the nations of the world must renew their commitment to the United Nations, fulfill their obligations under existing international agreements, and support the implementation of Earth Charter principles with an international, legally binding instrument on environment and development. These objectives in this paragraph are what all of the preceding verbiage in the Charter are directed toward. The official version says the Charter can, quote, be utilized as a soft law instrument. Soft law in globalese means an important preparatory step toward later hard law, international hard law that will mandate compliance by nation states and by individuals. The Earth Charter Initiative website, you can go to it, declares this, and I quote, "The Earth Charter values and principles must be taught, contemplated, applied, and internalized. To this end, the Earth Charter needs to be incorporated into both formal and informal education. This process must involve various communities, continue to integrate the Charter into the curriculum of schools and universities, and constitute an ongoing process of lifelong learning," unquote. It also says this: "We seek to increase the participation of young people in utilizing the Earth Charter as a guideline in their work as active agents of change," end quote. Yes, our youth are to become change agents in the scheme envisioned here. But what are they trying to change and how? Let's take a look. If you go to the Earth Charter website, www.earthcharter.org, you will see that they already have curriculum materials for this project. Many of the curricula they direct you to come from UNESCO, the United Nations Education, Scientific, Cultural Organization. There are many examples we could examine here, but time permits only one. The students study the sustainable lifestyles of the people of the Annapurna region of Nepal. They read an interview with Min Bahadur Gurung, a village elder, who says, quote, "Our culture and religion provide education for nature conservation. In every village we have a forest sanctuary where we worship our forest god. The forest is prohibited from any use. Our sacred forests are set aside above our village. Our forests shape our lifestyles and behaviors. We respect the forest because it is the home of our God. We tell people not to cut down trees and not to kill animals," end quote. These curriculum materials are replete with references and examples like this that extol the supposed superior wisdom and ecological sensitivity of pantheistic indigenous spirituality and that denigrate Christianity. After reading the interviews with the tree god worshippers, the students are told, and I quote, "Identify the relevance of the 9 principles for sustainable living followed by the people in Annapurna area." And then they are told, quote, "Rate the relevance of each of the 9 principles of sustainable living to your chosen religion." Further, they are told, quote, "Summarize how people in your chosen religion do or perhaps do not practice these principles," end quote. The lesson hammered home in these lessons is that pantheistic religions inspire an ethic of living in unity and harmony with nature. Christianity, on the other hand, inspires an ethic of separateness and exploitation of nature. Pantheism is a favorite doctrine of collectivists because it offers a concept of man which on religious grounds subordinates the individual to the collective. Since God in this belief system is not the transcendent personal God of the Bible, but an impersonal, immanent force that pervades all things, then all things, the universe, you, me, the rock, the tree, are all God in a sense. In this pagan worldview, man is not a special creation of the one true God, to whom ultimately he is accountable, nor is he endowed by his Creator with an immortal soul and intrinsic unalienable rights and responsibilities. Pantheism functions as an effective tool in the subversion of God-centered religion by making religion man-centered or nature-centered. And it thereby gives religious sanction to the doctrines and programs of political collectivism. At the same time, pantheism can be used as a stage in bringing people from theism to atheistic materialism. In religion, pantheism is most often expressed as naturalism, the doctrine that religious truth is derived from nature, not from revelation. Thus we saw the blasphemous Ark of Hope wedded to the Earth Charter in some bizarre New Age neo-pagan ceremonies leading up to the recent Earth Summit II in Johannesburg in September. The Ark of Hope, as it is called, is a sacrilegious mockery of the biblical Ark of the Covenant constructed by Moses to bear the Ten Commandments. We published an article about that, of course, in the New American, and that has stirred a great deal of interest all around. We are very gratified that our article stirred the interest of Professor Stephen Rockefeller, chairman of the Earth Charter Drafting Committee and chairman of the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. Dr. Rockefeller sent us a letter taking umbrage with our expose. The article, Rockefeller said, quote, contains some misunderstandings, unquote, about the Earth Charter Initiative, which he then purported to correct. Dr. Rockefeller begins his letter with this point, quote, the Earth Charter is the product of a worldwide, cross-cultural, interfaith dialogue on common goals and shared values that has been conducted as a civil society initiative, end quote. Sounds pretty good, doesn't it? To which I respond to the contrary. The global campaign for the Charter is not a grassroots bottom-up effort, but a closely controlled top-down operation masquerading as dialogue. The Charter was cobbled together under the leadership of Dr. Rockefeller, along with lifelong communist Mikhail Gorbachev, representing Green Cross International. It also included Earth Summit I General Secretary Maurice Strong, representing the Earth Council, and representatives from the government of the Netherlands. So, who are the eminent persons, as Gorbachev calls them, who have drawn up this Charter's principles to guide the conduct of individuals, organizations, businesses, and governments, and transnational institutions? That's what they claim it's for. Well, Leonardo Boff, the radical Marxist author and proponent of liberation theology. Some of the more familiar names at Green Cross International include Yoko Ono, widow of John Lennon, Robert Redford, Ted Turner. Earth Council luminaries include Jimmy Carter, Robert McNamara, Bishop Desmond Tutu. Not exactly your grassroots representatives. Now, Dr. Rockefeller and his associates will no doubt point to the Earth Charter community summits that took place in dozens of cities around the world on September 28th as proof that the Charter has global popular support. The so-called community summits demonstrated that in spite of all of the hype and funding that have been lavished on this effort, popular support is nil. Despite considerable promotion, favorable media treatment, and summit venues in the heart of liberal left activist communities, the summits, as measured by attendance, were complete flops, belying the claims of the Earth Charter organizers that they represent a global, popular, grassroots movement. The San Francisco summit that I attended was expected to be the largest gathering of all of them. It fluctuated between only 65 and 150 attendees. In San Francisco, no less. The largest summit attendance appears to have been in Burlington, Vermont, which boasted a high, during its highest point there when Dr. Rockefeller was there, of 350 to 400 in attendance. That was, of course, Dr. Rockefeller's home ground, and obviously Rockefeller money helps, but it was still a flop by any realistic standard. The organizers and the attendees of the summits proved to be the ultra-radical political and environmentalists. In Los Angeles, for example, the program was kicked off by none other than Irving Sarnoff, who is a longtime activist and official for the Communist Party USA. He's been with them for over half a century. The so-called peace and environmental organizations represented at these summits, like those at the higher levels, run by Rockefeller, Gorbachev, etc., are completely synthetic facades. Without continued funding from the Rockefeller Brothers Fund, run by Stephen Rockefeller, the United Nations Foundation, run by and funded by Ted Turner, the Ford Foundation, the World Bank, various UN spigots, and other foundation and government grants, this supposed voice of global civil society would not exist. Now, surely Professor Rockefeller knows this full well. This is not genuine diversity and dialogue, but merely the amplified echo chamber chatterings of like-minded internationalists whose opinions differ only as to the optimum speed of the train, not as to its final destination. Another Rockefeller point, quote, "The Earth Charter encourages the religions of the world and faith communities to embrace an ethic of respect and care for all people. It is not the purpose or interest of the Earth Charter Initiative to create a new world religion." End quote. Dr. Rockefeller knows better than this, for he has been at the forefront of the movement to create a new age global syncretic faith for many years. Along with other members of the Rockefeller family, he has been one of the major patrons of the Episcopalian Cathedral of St. John the Divine in New York City. It is one of the most prestigious fronts of New Age proselytizing and has been for decades. The cathedral has been the home for many years, for instance, for the Lindisfarne Institute and the Institute's founder, New Age guru William Irwin Thompson. According to Thompson, quote, "We have now a new spirituality, what has been called the New Age movement. The planetization of the esoteric has been going on for some time. This is now beginning to influence concepts of politics and community and ecology. This is the Gaia, Mother Earth politique, planetary culture. What's more," says Thompson, "the time, quote, of the independent nation state, sovereign nation state with sovereign individual in his private property is over, just as the Christian fundamentalist days are about to be over," end quote. Yes, these schemers intend to put an end to national sovereignty, to individuality, to private property, and to Christianity. Rockefeller's close friend and fellow Earth Charter promoter, Maurice Strong, is a longtime officer in this same William Irwin Thompson's Lindisfarne Center and shares his New Age occult Christian beliefs. Let us remind you, Maurice Strong has been one of the key people in producing this Earth Charter. Back to Rockefeller. He says, quote, "The Earth Charter teaches respect for nature, including Earth, our planetary home. But there's nothing in the Earth Charter about worship of Earth," end quote. True, the Earth Charter does not explicitly say anything about worshiping the Earth, but in this it follows the pattern of most UN documents, which are notorious for vague verbiage that sounds innocent until it is officially interpreted by internationalist experts. But the Earth Charter advocates and their UN allies have by word and deed shown that neo-pagan Earth worship is precisely what they are promoting. They are proceeding as rapidly and as openly as they dare, hoping not to alarm any large segment of the world's religious communities with their subversive agenda before it has become firmly set in place. Maurice Strong opened Earth Summit 1. I was there. I witnessed this. It's on videotape. With the declaration of the Earth Summit. Declaration of the sacred Earth. Accompanied by indigenous animist Earth worship ceremonies. This has become standard practice at UN convocations. Mr. Strong also declared there, quote, "We must transform our attitudes and values and adopt a renewed respect for the superior laws of divine nature," end quote, divine nature. This adds new meaning to the Charter's assertion that the protection of Earth, as defined by the UN, is, quote, "our sacred trust." But there is good news in all of this. We are waking the American people with this issue. Many of the other dangers that we point to involving the UN, on disarmament, the International Criminal Court, global taxation, etc., these are very real. But they seem very remote, far off. It's difficult for many people to see how these might directly affect them, except perhaps in the distant, distant future. And besides, they're confident that our elected representatives will protect them. But the Earth Charter is here now. It is here in our local communities. The U.S. Conference of Mayors has endorsed it. Schools are adopting it. And this will be accelerating. The Earth Charter threat is immediate, and the targets are intimate. They are personal. The targets are our children, our families, our communities, and our deepest religious convictions. And that is our advantage. People do rise to the occasion, just the instinct for survival when these things are attacked. And once the true agenda of the Earth Charter is understood, it is so blatantly anti-American, anti-family, anti-Christian, and anti-God that this can become the issue to wake the sleeping giant. So let's use it. And with God's help, we'll succeed in this. God bless you.